From a cubicle at Initech, it's the IGN Digigods. Please welcome two men who know what PC load letter means, Wade Major and Mark Kaiser.
Well, clearly one of our listeners knows what it means. Corey?
That was written by Eric Altieri. Please give him back his stapler.
I'll burn the building down. Always got to love a good Office Space reference, right, Mark?
Don't you want I've never, Office Space? You know, it took me years to get onto Office Space.
Really?
For years, I didn't get it.
Oh my
Did
gosh!
not get it.
First time I saw that film, I expected nothing and laughed myself so completely delirious.
Really?
Oh, it was so funny.
Now I kind of get it more.
Yeah.
But I have to admit, at the time, I didn't get it.
That's funny because you work in a corporate environment, and my cubicle experience is relatively limited.
Well, at the time, I didn't.
Yeah.
At the time, I was a freelance producer. I was the big dog. I didn't, those Office Space was for the people who worked for me.
Got it.
So basically, I was Gary Cole.
I should tell everybody, Mark has been cracking himself up for the last 10 minutes reading these.
You can't explain that.
Well,
they're
the quote mashups, right? Where there's a photograph, you put a completely misconstrued quote with a picture with a person, and none of them match. Like, use the Force, Harry, Gandalf, and it's a picture of Spock or something.
Well, there's two funny ones. One is the quote, "With great power comes great responsibility," Batman, with a picture of the Punisher on it. And there's another funny one, the funniest one in the world. I really want to make a T-shirt out of this. There's a shot of there's a photograph, the classic hero pose of Captain Kirk, William Shatner from the '66 show, and the quote is "Make it so #1," and it's attributed to Captain Janeway. I think this meme is about maybe 65 years old, and we're finally getting around to it.
Oh, really? Is it that
probably?
Well, anyway. So be it. We are here to talk about DVDs and Blu-rays and all things in between, whatever else may be in between. We should start talking about DivX, like the DivX release of the week. We really should.
Or how about the HD DVD release of the week?
Yeah. Maybe the RCA movie disc. What was that called?
I don't know. Can we start the show?
Yeah. Okay.
Wait, now did the show not actually start, and now it's starting, or was
No, it actually started.
Oh, so we've been recording for the last 3 minutes.
Yes.
Boring everybody with
Absolutely.
our nonsense.
Absolutely.
Well, then let's not bore people anymore.
You know what? We have Mark was saying even before the show. This is probably the first big double dip Blu-ray. And this is the big mama, the 70th anniversary limited edition, anniversary edition of Casablanca. For those who are out there screaming and cursing the world because they thought that first big, splashy Casablanca Blu-ray box set would be the last time they'd ever have to buy this movie, as opposed to the other 3 times I think that it was released on DVD. I'm sorry, not so. You have to go out and get it again. And I don't normally say that, but even though and I think we talked about this at the time of the previous release, the transfer is too crisp, it's too clean. And a lot of people complain that they took out, with their digital noise reduction, their DNR, that took out way too much of the grain, which was always part of the charm in Casablanca. The photography, it needs that grain. It needs that 1942 feel. And here we are on a 70th anniversary. They've cleaned it up, and it's got the grain back. Not that the previous release was bad. It just needed to look more like a vintage movie than a high def black and white movie. But this is really absolutely gorgeous. They did a great job. It's a brand new 4K scan that they did this transfer from. So the film's been properly done completely, and it is loaded with unbelievable extras. And you know what? You don't need to hang on to any of those old DVDs for coasters anymore, because you get 4 coasters with this Blu-ray.
I didn't see Casablanca. No. I didn't see Casablanca for the first time until like 4 years ago.
Really?
Well, here's the thing. I'd gotten the Casablanca DVD.
Yes.
First was a big DVD set, then it was a big Blu-ray set. Now it's another big Blu-ray set.
Yes.
Well, I'd gotten this slam bam Casablanca DVD and didn't want to admit to anybody that I'd never seen the movie. Now, when Casablanca came out on DVD, it was a big deal. It was one of the big classics of all time, and at the time, DVD was finally getting around to the greats, and each time a great film would be would be released on DVD. It was kind of a big deal. And I had never seen it. And then I just refused to see it, even though I had the DVD, because I liked the joke of being able to say that a film critic and member of the LA Film Critics Association had never seen Casablanca. And then I got the Blu-ray, even though I had never seen that either. And then a couple of years ago, I said, you know what? I think I was sick. And I was sitting at home. I said, you know what? I'm gonna watch Casablanca.
Sweet.
The first time ever.
Sweet.
It was so good.
It's great.
It's a great movie.
It's an unbelievable film.
It's so good.
Yeah, there's a reason why this is always up there with the greatest movies of all time, because it's so iconic. There's so many great lines. I mean, Round Up the Usual Suspects, and on and on and on and on. It's fabulous.
It was Humphrey Bogart. I think this is Humphrey Bogart's first pure romantic.
Yes, it was
non-gangstery.
It was
kind of a role,
and it was definitive. And for Ingrid Bergman as well. I mean, this was a legendary pairing. It really was, and it still is.
And Bergman, by the way, who always had to be lit from the left side.
Yeah,
because that was her preferred side.
That's it. Well, and by the way, it's Streisand's too.
Is that right?
Yeah, you almost never ever see Streisand from the right side in movies. Check it out. Watch it. Always left side. Anyway, what do you get here? You get a whole bunch of stuff other than the Blu-rays, other than Blu-ray 1 and 2, and then also a DVD. Should point that out. You can the movie also comes on a DVD if you want to throw it on and force the kids to watch a good movie in the car. But everything else here, you get a collectible 60-page booklet with photos and notes and production stuff and drawings and all kinds of fun things. It's more of kind of a souvenir thing. It's not like a book that you're going to ever sit down and really read. And then a little reproduction of a French poster, and it's just gorgeous. Extras, my goodness, the extras. Commentary by Roger Ebert, which is fabulous. We've heard that before. Obviously, that is not recent. Commentary by Rudy Belmer, who's also a film historian. That one is outstanding as well. A lot of stuff that you've already seen. You must remember this: the Warner Brothers story, the Brothers Warner, which is a documentary on the Warner Brothers. Jack Warner, The Last Mogul, which is not to be confused with the movie The Last Mogul, which is about Lew Wasserman. I think Jack Warner is probably the real last mogul. Lew Wasserman is kind of like the post-mogul, but nonetheless, we won't argue about that.
Or The Last Tycoon.
Yes.
As opposed to The Last Mogul.
The Last Harpoon?
No.
Okay.
Sorry.
We don't rehearse these jokes. You
only get them. Jokes?
You only get them once. Great performances. Bacall Bogart. You must remember this. A tribute to Casablanca. All featurette stuff. As time goes by, the children remember deleted scenes. There's even some cartoons on here. And a 1947 Vox Pop radio broadcast. So, I mean, all nice, juicy goodies, but at the end of the day, really, the reason you're getting this is because it is a new transfer. It is a legitimate double dip, and unless we get some kind of a 2K home format at some point in the future, which would not be for years, because to get a 2K television right now would set you back probably about $15,000, and there are no broadcasts, and there's no material in 2K that you could put on it. So, you're probably a good 10, 15 years away from that. So for the time being, I would say this is a legitimate double dip. Mark?
I agree. Totally agree. The only thing with these really big ones is that you can't put them comfortably on your shelf because it's not the size of a regular DVD.
That is true.
It is oversized.
Worth every little penny and every bit of space that it occupies. Mark, we teased something at the end of the show last week in conjunction with the opening of the Hunger Games, which I think is on track to make, $600 million this weekend?
Yes. That is a conservative estimate.
Yeah. Something obnoxiously huge. By the way, did we talk about the Hunger Games?
Did we? I believe a little bit.
A little bit?
Why? What would you like to say?
I just want to say, notwithstanding the story, which is like meh, to me, I get it. It's like a mashup of a lot of things we've already seen before. But I thought that, honestly, all other things being equal, that had to be the worst photographed major motion picture I've seen in maybe 30 years.
You know what's funny is that I
it's
find
just horrendous.
I find a lot of people complaining about that, and that's not. And like the cinematography in a film is not something that the average Joe complains about.
No, you're
or
not
notices,
supposed to.
And people are just, especially that first 10 minutes.
Oh, it's just awful.
The super shaky cam.
But it's shaky. It's too close. There are shots that are out of focus. It's flat. It's dull. There's no kind of color depth to it. I mean, everything that you use to composition. What composition? It's like everything that you use to evaluate good cinematography was just thrown out the window for this movie. I don't know. And I'm trying to figure out, was it a creative choice? Because it's not how Gary Ross normally shoots his movies. Seabiscuit is a gorgeous movie. I mean, Seabiscuit is a classically photographed film. So Gary Ross knows better. And was it a conscious choice, or did they not have
time? Maybe they didn't have the time.
Maybe they didn't have the time. I know they're shooting in North Carolina. It's a limited, this was kind of, compared to really huge blockbusters, this was a modest budget. $80 million isn't modest by anybody's standard, but compared to, John Carter and all these other movies, it's a minuscule amount. So maybe that had something to do with it I don't know. But it just looks awful.
Now, I spoke to our friend Bob Strauss at the Damsels in Distress screening, and he he told me which scene Soderbergh had done. Steven Soderbergh did some second unit.
Right.
And,
Which I think the connection there is probably Steve Marioni, to be honest.
Well, no, they've been friends for many years.
Well, I know Steve Marioni.
No, like literally, Steven Soderbergh's book, which was released in like 2002 or something, mentions that he and Ross go back.
Oh, he and Gary Ross. Okay, because Steve Marioni, who edited the movie, who edited Hunger Games, also won an Oscar for editing Traffic.
Right.
So,
6 degrees of separation.
Oh, there we
anyway,
go.
So Ross had asked Soderbergh to do some second uniform. They're old friends. And our friend Bob Strauss knows which scene Soderbergh did. Now, you have to understand, when you do second units,
yes,
you can't go in there and say, I'm going to make it black and white and change the aspect ratio and do whatever I want to do. You've got to match what the director does. You can't really go too far off field.
Yep.
So this is not a spoiler. It's just a scene.
Yeah.
So Soderbergh, according to Bob Strauss, directed the riot scene. There was a scene about 2/3 of the way through the film when one of the districts starts rioting.
Yeah.
It's a pretty brief scene. And they actually
I think
they start to rough up those little Cossacks, whatever they call them.
Yeah, there's actually, I think that scene was called Occupy District 4.
Yes.
Yes.
Anyway, that's the scene that. So when you see the movie, about 2/3 of the way through, there's a riot scene, and that's the one that Soderbergh directed.
Interesting. The scene with Pontius Pilate in The Greatest Story Ever Told was directed by David Lean.
Really?
Just pointing that out.
Really?
Because George Stevens was completely out of his mind, couldn't get his arms around the movie. Anyway, among the many movies that we think, and others are on the bandwagon on this too, that The Hunger Games unavoidably rips off, and we could throw Logan's Run, The Running Man, and a lot of other stuff in there. But the one that everybody always comes back to is Battle Royale. And Battle Royale, clearly, the rights holders at least in the United States over at Anchor Bay, understand that this is a great opportunity. So no surprise, this last week, the whiz-bang, beautiful, complete collection 3-disc Blu-ray for Battle Royale was released by Anchor Bay in an unbelievably beautiful and splashy set. And if you don't know what Battle Royale is, this is a 3-disc Blu-ray set with a DVD on it as well. It's very similar to the Casablanca set, except it doesn't come in a box that's just going to completely hog your shelf. But if you don't know what Battle Royale is, basically this is a movie by Japanese director Kinji Fukasaku before he passed away. Kinji Fukasaku, one of the great all-time gangster directors in Japan, and basically made just Yakuza films most of his career, but then he did a movie called Battle Royale. And Battle Royale, which was made 12 years ago, unbelievable, is essentially a kind of it's a near-future neo-fascistic tale in which the government basically takes 10 teenagers and puts them into this hunting game where they have to kill each other for sport. And it is absolutely brilliant. It is bloody. It is horrific. It is sociologically deeply, deeply disturbing. And if you've seen The Hunger Games, you're going to watch this and you're going to go, well, there's obviously a lot of stuff. You don't have Stanley Tucci with the blue hair and all of the weird district stuff and all that kind of post-apocalyptic politics. That's not going on here. But in terms of what this says about our primal nature and what you can do to us and what we can do to each other and all of that stuff, all that kind of Lord of the Flies stuff, it's pretty great.
It is great.
I love this
and
movie.
You know what? The thing with the Hunger Games that people have to remember is that part of the reason why it's not unbelievably brutal, like Battle Royale is unbelievably brutal, is that Hunger Games is based on a young adult novel.
Exactly.
So it's going to be a young adult movie.
Whereas Kenji Fukasaku made Battle Royale as a preteen movie. So they're not at all in the same group. This is like in Japan, this is rated no one over 8 allowed.
This is rated no one can show up. This is so bloody. This is rated.
No parents allowed. Only prepubescent children. Bring a toy.
This is rated NC nobody. Nobody's allowed into the theater during the showing of this movie.
Anyway, there's
That's
a lot
how
of
bloody it is.
Been a lot of discussion on the internet about Battle Royale and whether or not Hunger Games ripped it off, et cetera, et cetera. But you know what? Tarantino loves this movie. He's reportedly said that this is the movie he wishes he could have made. This has 2 different versions of Battle Royale on it, both of which are just incredibly bloody. And then it also has Battle Royale 2 Requiem, the sequel, which is not anything to really scream about. And loads and loads and loads of extras on the 4th disc, which is a DVD. So all of your extras, which include special effects, featurettes, and things from a little bit from the Tokyo International Film Festival in 2000, and a really good documentary. All that stuff is a DVD. So don't expect high def on any of your special features. But the movie itself, as a high def transfer, is really, really terrific. I mean, it's a well photographed film. It's been released. I had actually, prior to getting this, I had used the import more. I had an import, nice Japanese import in a little tin. It was a beautiful DVD, but this blows it away.
Now you got something new.
Sure do.
Now you can slaughter teenagers in full high definition.
Sure do.
You know, they were supposed to remake this thing. You know, like this is a few years ago. Actually, Neil Moritz was supposed to remake it.
Oh, gosh.
But
I'm so sick of
it would
Neil
never
Moritz.
happen. It would just never happen.
And while we're plowing through foreign, I want to give another quick little shout-out to a new Blu-ray that comes to us from Music Box Films, which I have to give all kinds of praises to, because this went under everybody's radar, and for good reason, too. Gainsbourg, A Heroic Life. If you don't know who Serge Gainsbourg is or was, you're really missing out. Serge Gainsbourg was one of the legendary music figures in the history of world music. Primarily known in France, but significantly throughout Europe and to a much, much smaller degree in the United States.
Although you might know his daughter.
You might know his daughter, Charlotte Gainsbourg, who, of course, does a lot of movies and has won Best Actress at the Cannes Film Festival and shows up. She speaks fluent English because her mom is Jane Birkin, who is an English actress. But, this is her dad. Who has written some of the most amazing and scandalous songs of all time. I will only say Je t'aime, the song that he sang with his then, I don't know if they were married at the time, but with Charlotte's mom, Jane Birkin, originally written to be a duet with Brigitte Bardot, it's just hysterical. It has an orgasm solo in it, for crying out loud. When I was living in France, just before Gainsbourg died, and when Charlotte was sort of coming of age, he and Charlotte did a duet together where she's completely off-key through the whole thing, and the name of the song was Lemon Incest.
Yeah.
So, and that was a big hit back in mid-'80s. So, yeah.
You know what my favorite Surge song is?
Huh?
Bonnie and Clyde.
It's such a good song.
I like that song.
It really is. Look it up, people.
Bonnie
Anyway,
and Clyde.
This is a film that was here in Los Angeles, debuted at the City of Lights, City of Angels Film Festival, Colcoa, and I got to tell you, it is a terrific film. Eric Elmosnino, who won the César for this, and whom you've seen in a lot of other movies, the way he is made up, not with any makeup, they just do his hair right, and he just acts the part. He is the spitting, scary image of Serge Gainsbourg. And much of the film is a little bit odd. There's sort of this surrealistic sub. It's not really a subplot, but there's a surrealistic through line where Gainsbourg is constantly sort of confronting his Jewishness and whether or not that really is sort of an insurmountable handicap in his life, or whether or not it's an aid to him in some way, whether or not it strengthens him. And this all kind of begins in the aftermath of post-Holocaust Paris, post-World War II Paris as he's growing up.
I can answer that, by the way.
Yes, answer it.
Being Jewish is an aid if you work in Hollywood, but it's bad for your digestion. And I should know.
Well, anyway, this is an unbelievable performance, a great film. Not a traditional biopic, but it's a really, really good movie. You should check it out. Eric Almosnino's performance is fantastic. The Music Box Blu-ray, very nicely done. Don't think that little companies can't do great Blu-rays. It's a well-photographed film, very nicely transferred, first rate all the way through.
Wait, now that we're talking about decadent and perverse movies,
Yes.
let's talk about Love Exposure. You love Love Exposure. Love Exposure is a Japanese film from 2008, and it was very controversial. It is 4 hours long, and it includes all sorts of really deep, dark, religious, sexual perversities.
Lovely.
There's a character who really, really, really wants to cut off her father's penis.
That's nice.
Does she do that? I'll let you decide. I'll let you see yourself. This thing actually got a lot of positive praise. It's really hard to sit through. I mean, it's not that it's not a good movie.
It got
but
a lot of votes when we were voting for our year-end awards.
It really did.
I was shocked. I couldn't believe how many times this kind of popped up. Not enough, obviously, to really be a contender, but it was like, geez, a lot of people in the room really like this movie.
Well, this thing won
And
a bunch of awards.
I don't dislike it, but it's like, do I really want to watch it again?
Well,
not really.
No, but I'll tell you, it won awards at Berlin. It won awards at the Yokohama Film Festival.
Yeah.
Asian Pacific Screen Awards. I mean, it won a bunch of awards, but it's really something you got to sit through. There's a lot of Catholic imagery because in the film it takes place in this Catholic family with this like priest who sins all the time and the kid who's totally straight laced and decides that he's going to go on a sin parade and starts sinning everywhere, and it just gets really, really dark, and he dresses in drag and all this sort of crazy stuff that goes on. The thing is that it's 4 hours long. I would say that if you could take all this sin and all this perversity and shove it into 90 minutes, this would be a lot better.
A sin parade, huh?
Yes.
Do they have that on New Year's Day?
Yes, on a sin parade.
Yeah.
There's a joke there somewhere. If I just knew that line was coming about 30 seconds earlier, I could come up with something funny.
We got a couple of criterions this week. One's a documentary. We'll get to that a little bit later. But we also have here Letter Never Sent by Mikhail Kalatozov. I'm sure our listener Alexander Berlika will email us and tell us exactly how that's supposed to be pronounced. This is from 1959. This is a pretty terrific Russian movie from that Soviet cinema period where there were actually relatively few really great international films. There were a lot of great directors working, but the constraints of censorship at the time didn't necessarily allow for a lot of really great films to break out. And this is one of them. There's maybe 20 or 30, I think, from that whole period that you could really say are just legitimate international cinema masterpieces. And this one really comes close. I don't know if this is like really at the top tier for me, but it's awfully close. I think in some respects this probably reminds me a little bit of Deresu Uzala, the Akira Kurosawa film that was actually technically a Russian production, and the one film of Kurosawa's that won the Best Foreign Language Oscar. This is a beautifully photographed survival epic. Basically about four guys in Siberia who are looking for diamonds, and how just the politics of that relationship, that survival experience, really fascinating, really nicely done, and not at all what you would expect from certainly Soviet cinema at this time. It's a very personal film. It's not something that sort of has a lot of sociological ideas. There's no socialist realism in it. It really is a character study, and it's a beautiful character study. Very nice. Not thick on the extras. It's really terrific black and white photography, beautiful transfer on Blu-ray. As per usual with Criterion, you just can't ever complain about anything that they do. Basically, the main extra here is the booklet, which has an essay on the film in it by Dina Iordinova. And that hopefully is it for me mispronouncing people's names this week.
I think you might have done a good job with what? Iordinova?
It's something like that.
Well done.
Yeah, I'm not going to give it a second shot.
Speaking of well done, is a little film you've never heard of, but if you want sort of a light little fun upstairs, downstairs type comedy, you should check out The Women on the Sixth Floor. This is a film from last year, and it is about this bourgeois couple living in a big, huge, cold mansion, and in Paris in 1960, and their kids are away at boarding school.
It has Fabrice Lucchini in it. I love him.
That is true. It also has what's her name, Carmen Maura from all the
we love Carmen Maura.
films.
Yes.
Anyway, so the man of the house learns about all the servants who live on the 6th floor, and the servants who live on the 6th floor are, of course, all these underappreciated men and women, and they all have a great time. It's like the people in steerage. It's like in Titanic. It's like the people in steerage versus the people in the first class. And it's just classic upstairs, downstairs stuff. But you know what? It's very lighthearted, and I thought it was kind of cute, and I didn't expect anything out of it. In fact, it looked kind of lame, at least based on the DVD box. I had never seen it, but it's cute. And so this socialite, this rich bourgeois guy, climbs up to the 6th floor, meets all the servants, goes into their quarters, makes friends with a lot of them. They're all sassy maids, and they teach him that there's what life is all about. It's not all about money and whatnot, which of course is not true. Life is about money. Anyway, there's no bonus features in this thing, so that's kind of lame. But you know what? It's a nice little movie. The Women on the 6th Floor. I was very surprised.
Very sweet. Another couple of great Italian films out this week. 2 Luchino Visconti movies from E1 Entertainment. They're doing a really good job. This is part of their Italian neorealist cinema series. They're releasing a lot of these, and these are 2 Visconti films, Bellissima from 1951 and La Terra Trema from 1948. Bellissima is basically kind of a neorealist version of Gypsy, without the music and without the stripping and without Natalie Wood. By the way, new version of Gypsy with Barbara Streisand playing Mom. It's going to be great. Going to love it. Fabulous. It's going to be written by... UK there?
I dropped the headset.
That's great. Going to be written by Julian Fellows. Julian Fellows is going to write it. I think we talked about that last week when we covered.
You're talking about a lot of stuff this week. I'm talking about last week.
Anyway, Bellissima, basically about a mother who wants to push her daughter to become a star, but in a very different kind of a way. This isn't like crazy. This is like. She's not like a crazy stage mom like we always run into in New York or in Los Angeles. It's, my daughter is the greatest. No, that's not this. This is neorealism. It is beautiful. It is meaningful. It is heartfelt, like all Visconti films. But the real gem here is La Terra Trema, which was a big deal throughout the world in 1948. It was one of the early kind of breakthrough neorealist films. All non-actors here, kind of like in The Bicycle Thieves. And takes place it's about a family in a fishing village, and there's very much a class thing going on. So there's a lot of interesting commentary about the state of post-war Italy here, and some of the class and cultural division vestiges that have remained after pushing out Mussolini. But it's really pretty gut-wrenching, and I would say if you want to commit suicide, you will watch this in a double feature with The Bicycle Thieves. It'll be lovely. Or else you'll just never want to go to Italy.
I like. You know what? I have to say that although it's more accurate to say Bicycle Thieves, I liked it more when it was called The Bicycle Thief.
I know, everybody
because
does.
You think that the bicycle thief is the guy who stole the bike at the beginning of the movie. You think that the movie's named after him. Actually, the bicycle thief is the guy, is the dad. See, it's the twist. It's the twist that makes it ironic. But now it's Bicycle Thieves. So it's kind of both of them. It takes, you know what? He should rename. He should rise from the dead and rename that movie.
I'm going to spend very little time talking about this next film. House of Pleasures was some kind of big deal at Cannes and Toronto, and this film is just deeply, deeply unpleasant to watch. It directed by Bertrand Bonello, and I just don't understand why this was a big deal at all. This is a French language film. Here, let me put it this way. There was a much, much better film some years ago along somewhat similar lines, directed by Patrice Leconte, called Rue des Plaisirs, which is, both of these are about life in Parisian brothels during that period just before they were made illegal, or technically illegal. They're still around, but when it's sort of like the glory days of the Parisian brothel, right? Oh, the good old days when, syphilis and the clap just were allowed to go unrestrained everywhere. Anyway, Rue des Plaisirs is more of a character piece. It's a lovely film. I won't get into that. It's a Patrice Leconte film. Patrice Leconte can do no wrong ever. This thing is just twisted, and there really isn't much of a plot. It's just a bunch of whores and a lot of Johns and a lot of horrible things that go on, including in one episode a sadist who deforms one of the prostitutes, and it's really pretty horrific, and it's really awful, and The film is meant, obviously, to be kind of a lesson in how degraded this lifestyle is, but it doesn't really go anywhere. And it's photographed in the most unbelievably pretentious Peter Greenaway style. And it just drove me crazy, and I can't handle it. So I'm not going to say anything more about it. That's it. House of Pleasures, if you want to take the plunge, be my guest. I don't support it.
What I do support is another surprise, much like The Woman on the Sixth Floor. It's a film called Mozart's Sister. It's a film by Renee Ferré. And I did not know this film existed until I watched it here on Blu-ray, and it's good. It is about, wait for it, Mozart's sister.
Mozart had a sister?
Mozart had a sister, and it turns out that not only did Mozart have a sister, but the sister was quite gifted. And the problem with Mozart's sister being gifted was that, obviously, back in the day, there were very strict gender rules that had to be adhered to, and Mozart's sister was not allowed to play the violin in this film, or in real life too, but because the violin was not seen as a woman's instrument, and she couldn't really compose, because that was not seen as a woman's work, so she wound up playing the harpsichord.
Yeah, there it is.
And she was very good at it. And the film is just terrific. You know what? It's very much of, obviously, it's a... You have to understand that even though Mozart's sister couldn't do what she really wanted to do, which is play the violin and compose, she and in the movie, the father who is loving but strict, the father's the one who sort of he's the one who administers, these edicts to the family of what the sister and the brother can and can't do. The father in a film like this, the father would normally be seen as like a real villain for not letting the daughter do what she wants to do. But you know what? This is the what is this? The 1700s or something crazy like that. He was just really just. This was how it was during that time. During that time,
Sweet.
He was just women did this and men did that, and that was the end of it. So her story is a little bit tragic, and the actress who plays Mozart's sister is terrific. And it's funny, too, because the actor who plays Mozart, not Tom Hulce, like in the Oscar-winning film, but David Moreau, who plays Amadeus a little differently, but still terrifically. And it's a nice little movie. Mozart's Sister is what it is, and there's like no special features on it.
Well, but it's a nice Blu-ray.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Anyway, I'm just so tired of talking about this show.
You finally hit your... I know it was about a few months ago that you hit your saturation point, but they keep coming, Mark.
I don't know what
They're not going to stop.
Nope.
As long as there are exploitation films to make fun of, we always will have...
Well,
that's your cue. We always
we'll
will
always have Mystery Science Theater. The
Yeah.
thing is that the show is done, but the show is on for over 10 years.
Yeah.
So now we're on Mystery Science Theater 3000 box set 23.
Oh, jeez.
And honestly, if these were worth anything, I'd probably sell them all back and buy the Casablanca Blu-ray. Actually, you know what? I'm actually not going to double dip on that Casablanca Blu-ray. I'm going to keep the old Blu-ray.
Well, you do that.
I am going to do that. This one, this Mystery Science includes King Dinosaur, the Castle of Fu Manchu, codenamed Diamond Hero, codenamed Diamond Head, which is the funniest of the four, and Last of the Wild Horses. There are mini posters here. There's a new introduction from Frank Conniff, who I've seen live perform. He's very funny. And there's a funny thing on Quinn Martin.
Quinn Martin?
Yes, a funny little short on Quinn Martin. And it's good stuff. I do love Mystery Science. I just don't need to own 23 of these.
You know what drove me absolutely bonkers, and I didn't want to have to see it. I had to see it for radio. And gosh, I was just so upset that I did. Alvin and the Chipmunks Chipwrecked. You know, I saw the original, the first Alvin and the Chipmunks. I thought it was just horrible and painful and agonizing to sit through. And then, thank goodness, I didn't actually have to see the second one with the Chipettes. And I dropped onto my knees and I offered a prayer and I just said, thank you for not putting me through that. And then I must have done a very bad thing in life because I wound up having to see this one. You know, here's the deal. This has the Chipmunks and the Chipettes in it, and it's silly. They're on a boat on a cruise ship, and Alvin. The whole plot is around how Alvin won't grow up. He keeps doing mischievous things that Dave tells him not to do. And sure enough, on the boat, he still gets into trouble. They don't stay inside their what do you call it? The room. What do they call them? There's a name on a ship for a room.
Cabin?
maybe it's cabin. I don't know. Whatever.
That's where you stay. You stay in your cabin.
You stay in your cabin. So they don't stay in their cabin, and he goes out and anyway. Long story short, they wind up go all falling overboard and wind up on an island, Gilligan's Island style, and then Dave Cross, whose name I always forget in these movies. Dave Cross plays the record magnate who screwed them up in the first movie and needs to get them back in the second one. Anyway, he somehow winds up in this as a guy who's doing some bizarre children's entertainment in a costume on the ship. It makes no sense, and then it's horrible. This is like a really long, drawn out, bad episode of Gilligan's Island. It's just terrible.
Did you like it?
No.
I didn't see it.
But it was the only the only memorable part of this was that there were a lot of us sitting together when this movie started. We were all on the Fox lot. I was sitting in the same row with Michael Rechtschaffen and Claudia Puig, USA Today, Michael Rechtschaffen from Hollywood Reporter. Christy Lemire was sitting right in front of me. And I forget who was sitting with Christy. Anyway, there were a bunch of us. It was a bit of a support group. And I just instinctively, when the movie started, there's a version of the Go-Go's Vacation sung by the Chipettes in that really high-pitched voice. And as soon as you hear Vacation, all I ever wanted, I just lost it. And I just went, oh, geez. And then I heard Claudia and Christy start cracking up. And I thought, okay, we'll be here for each other. It'll be good. It'll be good.
You were like a support group.
We were a support group. It wasn't very good, though. We didn't support each other very well. No one walked out.
I'd rather see Chipmunks. I'd rather see any Chipmunks movie than see Breaking Wind. Breaking Wind is a no-budget spoof of the Twilight films, directed by a guy named Craig Moss, who's done a couple of these films, and they're all just horrible, horrible, horrible films. And they're not funny, and they're all obsessed with bodily functions and whatnot. It's all very stupid.
Juvenile.
It's just so painfully juvenile. It's like, come on. I mean, it just kills me that this guy gets work. I mean, somebody paid Craig Moss to direct this film, and somebody paid Craig Moss to direct the other film he did, the 41-year-old virgin who knocked up Sarah Marshall and felt super bad about it. That was his previous film.
Oh, help us all.
So it's a no-name cast and not funny, and it's just painful. Breaking Wind.
Boo.
Please ignore it.
Angelina Jolie made her directing debut a few months ago in The Land of Blood and Honey. This is a really interesting movie. It's a fascinating film. It's a really good film. And it's in Serbo-Croatian, believe it or not. This is a Blu-ray DVD combo disc that I've got in my hands right here. And In the Land of Blood and Honey essentially tells the story of the Balkans War, the Bosnian War, beginning in Sarajevo, and it's the story of it starts as a beautiful romance between this couple. They're all Bosnian actors, and then she loves him, he loves her. They're dancing in the club, and then next thing you know, the war breaks out, and suddenly she's on the wrong side, and he's on. Well, they're each on the wrong side, but she is, obviously it is the Christian militia that is taking control, committing horrible atrocities left and right, trying to purge the land of Muslims. She's Muslim, and her guy turns out to be the son of a major general, played by Rade Serbeja. And Rade Serbeja,
a modern major general? Is he vegetable and mineral?
See, why'd we go there? Anyway, Rade always plays these bad guys, and he's very conflicted about it. And it is the story of that relationship now that they find themselves in a kind of a weird Romeo and Juliet situation, unable to really carry on their relationship as they wished, and being torn apart by religion and politics and all the rest of that. It's really if you didn't know that Angelina Jolie directed this movie, you'd swear that like some 75-year-old Eastern European auteur had done this. I mean, it is a really, really incredibly mature film. Beautifully, beautifully done. There is also an English version of this, which I do not recommend. Stick with the Bosnian language version, which got it a Golden Globe nomination for Best Foreign Language Film. It is a superb movie. Not much by way of special features, just some deleted scenes in a featurette. And there is a Q&A on here with Angelina Jolie and her lead actress, which is fine. But the movie itself is really worth watching. Even if you don't feel like you might want to own it, definitely watch it, because it's just amazing how accomplished she is as a filmmaker. I'm so impressed.
Yeah, hopefully she'll come back to America and do like a Chipmunks sequel.
Which is usually what happens.
Can you imagine? Chipmunks 4. Chipmunks on Parade, directed by Angelina Jolie.
Oh, that would be terrible.
I went to the first actually public screening of Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close, and at the time it was barely going to be ready for release. I mean, the release date.
I know we were wondering about this. We were getting ready to vote, and everybody was sending emails back and forth. Has anybody heard about any screenings? And then suddenly it was like 7 days before we voted. There were 75 screenings.
Well, I went to the first one,
Yeah.
and Stephen Daldry stood up in front of us and said, "This is the first public screening of the film." And the film, which stars Tom Hanks and Sandra Bullock, unspools, and at the end, everybody's in rapturous applause. And I'm looking at my friends saying, "What the hell was that? Was terrible."
Yeah.
This is just a precocious, insufferable, self-regarding piece of crap. You've got to be kidding.
Mm-hmm.
And the movie is about Thomas Horn, who was this kid that Stephen Daldry plucked, believe it or not, from Jeopardy. This kid had won like Teen Jeopardy. And the kid is fantastic. I mean, here's the thing: the way he's directed is horrible. He's directed to be the most insufferable kid who ever lived.
Yeah, true.
But Horn, the boy, is great. And after the film, there was a Q&A, and the kid was there, and he was saying how he probably doesn't want to act anymore. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. He didn't seem that enamored with the process. But I hope not, because he seems very, very present and very, very smart. And I wish he was not directed to be the kid you just want to punch in the nose. Actually, I wanted to punch this whole movie in the nose. In the movie, Thomas Horn plays a kid who's trying to get over the death of his father, played by Tom Hanks in 9/11. And so in order to do that, he finds this key. Imagine that, the most obvious symbol in the world, a key. And so he finds this key, and the key was his father's, but he doesn't know what box or what drawer or what this key opens. So he runs all around New York asking people whose last name is Black, I won't get into why he winds up doing that, whether they know what this key opens. And that's what he does the whole film. He does part of this with a tambourine in his hand. And so I wanted to actually punch the tambourine in the nose.
There's one
good scene with Jeffrey Wright.
Oh my gosh, you know what? That scene with Jeffrey Wright, and you can tell he is working his tail off to carry this film, to make that scene work in spite of everything else. I mean, it's amazing. You almost see him sweat blood just trying to make this all work, and it's almost like trying to take a rowboat against the tide. It's not going to work. But it's amazing to see how much he does in that one scene to actually just come off as like the rose in a big pile of poo.
Yeah, I mean, this thing is striving for importance so hard, and it wants to be important so bad. It wants to be a meaningful film for our time so desperately that it winds up just being cheap. It winds up being cheap and almost insulting. So I really did not like this film at all. Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close. It does look good on Blu-ray, and there's a bunch of special features on it, including a making of, and the way they found the kid, Thomas Horn. And, Max von Sydow, he's in it. He was Oscar nominated. This film was nominated for a Best Picture Oscar, I would imagine mostly on the strength of older Oscar voters.
Probably, because I saw it in a daytime screening with just a ton of older SAG members, mostly, and they loved it. And it did wind up getting nominated for Best Picture, so obviously somebody liked it.
I just don't get it. How could you like it? It's just so terrible.
I don't know. Mark, when the hell's Earth Day?
Earth Day?
Yeah.
I don't know. What's Earth Day? Is there an Earth Day?
There's an Earth Day.
Isn't it in March or something?
I think it is.
Aren't we in March now?
Did it come? Did it go? Well, I'm wondering because we got a bunch of eco documentaries here, which we should make mention of real quickly. One is Solar Taxi, Around the World with the Sun, a green road trip.
April 22nd.
April 22nd. So, see, we're that's what it is. We're about 4 weeks away, so they're getting these things out right now. This is kind of unusual road trip that begins in the summer of 2007, and this guy named Lewis Palmer built this thing that he calls a solar taxi, which is like this. It's like
the thing with the solar taxis that
yeah.
it also doesn't pick up black people. It's just strange.
Wow, thank you for that. Thank you for going there. Anyway, it's it's essentially this weird ecological road trip that he takes in his solar taxi car, which is like his little eco car. And anyway, It's all about kind of publicizing renewability and all this, yada, yada, yada. We know the drill. Anyway, it's not a terribly interesting film. It's not a boring film. I guess if you're concerned about all those issues, Mark and I aren't. We're staunch polluters.
You know what? Honestly, when I'm driving down the freeway, I throw my garbage out of my car.
I do too.
I roll down the window, throw my garbage out.
How does Phil feel about that?
Who?
Phil. Isn't Phil the garbage you throw out of your car? Never mind.
I so didn't get that.
I know. It's because it's too early in the morning.
Isn't Phil the garbage you throw out of your car?
Oh, never mind.
No. Don't stop the recording. What does that mean?
I don't know. You and Phil have this hysterical relationship, and I just thought I'd go for a lame joke.
Oh, you mean Phil, like our friend Phil?
Yeah.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah. I was setting you up for something.
You know what? We should just pretend the last 30 seconds didn't happen.
Okay.
Don't stop the recording.
I'm not. We also have a movie here from Docurama called Fresh, which will go along with movies like Food Inc. and make you never ever want to eat anything ever again. Maybe not so much. This is really just kind of a look into the process of whereas Food Inc. made you depressed about everything that you eat. This is really just sort of educational about how food is processed and how it's created and the process by which it goes from being grown and farmed to showing up in your market, because it doesn't just originate in the market like a lot of us used to think. And it's fine. It's informative more than it is terribly entertaining. And then we also have a thing here called Bag It. Is your life too plastic? Plastic bags have suddenly become really, really taboo everywhere. And even to the point, I don't know if you know this, Mark, but in your old haunting ground in Santa Monica, if you ask for a bag now, well, first of all, plastic bags, not allowed, illegal at all the markets. If you ask for a paper bag, you have to pay like a nickel.
So what are you supposed to carry your groceries by hand home?
Bring your own bag. Bring your own
in Santa Monica?
In Santa Monica.
Is
bring your own little renewable bag.
Is that a
citywide ordinance?
Really?
Yes.
When did that happen?
I don't know, like 6 months ago or
That's
something.
That's horrifying. So if I go to Ralph's, which is the major supermarket chain in Southern California, so if I go to Ralph's
in Santa Monica,
they bag my groceries. I'm not gonna bring 6.
They're gonna say to you, this is how much your groceries are, $29.95 or whatever. And would you like to pay an extra nickel for bags?
Really?
And you say, no, thank you. I have my bag in my back pocket, and you whip it out and you open it up and put your groceries in your personal bag and you carry them out.
No, you know what I would say? I would say, okay, that's fine, and I would take one item at a time to my car. That's what I would do. I'd just take one item at a time.
Well, anyway.
That is wild.
Yeah, no, it's true. That's true. So anyway, this is this movie called Bag It features Jeb Barrier, and he's your tour guide on into what plastic, primarily plastic bags, do to us ecologically, to the earth, to everything else. It's kind of depressing actually. So Earth Day is a time to cry, and that's what those are all about. Let's see. Hold on. We should. Let's go through these other docs over here. Or Mark, you want to do the music, or should I do these docs?
Do the docs.
Do the docs. All right, we've got our other Criterion release this week. The War Room, tremendous documentary by Chris Hagedis and D.A. Pennebaker, two of the great documentarians still working. This is a Criterion release of that, on Blu-ray, mind you, of that great 1993 look into the War Room of the Clinton campaign, and it is still one of the great all-time political documentaries. It is absolutely outstanding. It is as timely today as it was then. And it really, James Carville is sort of the star of this thing. And
young he looks in that.
It's insane. But you obviously get a lot of the other, Clinton figures, Stephanopoulos and Begala, a lot of people who are still out there as pundits on various news networks. They are very crucial to this as well. But what you really learn from this is just what a rough and tumble, incredibly calculating and brutal world it is to run a campaign. And you emerge from this thinking, why would anyone want to have anything to do with a campaign? I don't care how much you think you're saving the world or doing good. Why would you want to be a candidate? And why even less would you want to be in the unbelievably horrible position of being one of the grunt workers on a campaign who gets no glory and has to do all the work? it's horrible.
Because to them, you're doing your little part to be a part of history.
Oh, no, take a consultancy job, enjoy your life, go on a vacation, something.
Wade,
It's
angry,
just
angry,
wow, but
angry Wade. But it's a great Blu-ray.
it's a fabulous Blu-ray, and it's not like it's going to blow you away the way it's shot. It's a documentary, It's it's not like they lit all these scenes, and so they just oh my gosh, wow, George Stephanopoulos in high def, you're so good looking, and Carville in high def is not something you want to do to a television. It just isn't. It really isn't.
Aww.
So, but a lot of great special features on here. A really good panel discussion that was hosted by the William J. Clinton Foundation that features Carville and Vernon Jordan and Ron Brownstein, who was then with the LA Times. And
I liked Ron Brownstein.
I did too. He was really good. I was in a green room with him once.
It was painted green.
We were. It was a CNN thing, and he went on to talk about something, and I was waiting there to do something about movies openings. I can't even remember what it was, but we were here at CNN in LA, and we were in the green room together, and I was just sitting there, enjoying myself. Dude was working. Brownstein was sitting there. He had a phone. He had his laptop open. He was like working, and he was saying something important. He goes, "Yeah, I was talking to them, and they were saying that when the UN Council meets, and he's doing his whole little spiel. It was like, dude, do you ever play Tetris or anything? What's the man? Lighten up." But anyway,
well, that's what makes him Ron Brownstein.
I know. These guys, they all work hard. Look at us, lazy bums. But anyway, and this also features the return of the War Room. We should point out the 2008 documentary that was, kind of a follow-up. But really, The War Room, great, beautiful, excellent, outstanding Blu-ray. Another fine release from Criterion.
Is that right, Wade?
It is. And let's see. Also here is a thing called War, Women Art Revolution. This is the definitive history of feminist art. And even though it features a lot of people that I don't really consider artists, like Miranda July, it is actually a pretty interesting documentary. This comes to us from Zeitgeist, and it's kind of an askew look at what we would consider feminist art, because a lot of this isn't really you wouldn't look at a lot of this and go, "Oh my gosh, that's feminist art! Look at that photograph! Look at that painting! Look at that movie or whatever." It pulls you aside and says maybe you should see feminism through a different lens. Maybe you need to kind of consider it in its historical context from the 1960s forward and how it's changed, and so it really does take some interesting twists and turns along the way. And again, not a great documentary, but certainly interesting, and it makes you think, and that's worth something.
I don't like thinking. Does me no good.
There you go.
What?
Music.
Yes,
Here's with the music.
There's 2 music Blu-rays out this week. One is called the B-52s with the Wild Crowd, live in Athens, Georgia. B-52s, as you know, they are from Athens, Georgia, and this is their home. This is their return to their hometown concerts. This is good stuff. This was recorded in February 2011, and it turns out to be the they actually performed their very first gig in February on Valentine's Day. In 1977.
Really? No kidding.
And years later, they have returned. And you know what? I really do like the B-52s. They're a strange little band. They're sort of a mashup of post-punk and pop rock and all that.
Pop rocks. I remember pop rocks.
I was talking about pop rocks the other day. They're cool.
They are cool.
Anyway, all their hits are here. They're sort of they're a fun band to watch live, but I'd rather hear the music with the polish of a studio. Still, there's a lot of fun stuff in here. Love Shack, obviously, is their big hit. Rock Lobster was one of their early hits that we all remember imitating when we were in school. Funplex, one of the more recent hits. Also, one of their first big hits, Private Idaho. The reason why Private Idaho was famous is because Gus Van Sant liked the title Private Idaho so much that he used it as the basis for the title of his film, My Own Private Idaho. So it's good stuff. B-52s. Also, you think there've been a lot of Mystery Science Theater discs. Mm-hmm. There have been even more, possibly 5 times as many Live at Montreux discs.
That's true.
So now we have Live at Montreux 2004. Phil Collins. Now Phil Collins, he.
By the way, speaking of Phil Collins, you do realize that the movie Mirror Mirror that is coming out shortly, the spoofy Snow White thing with Armie Hammer playing the prince and Julia Roberts playing the evil queen, that's all done. It's supposed to be like a kind of a Snow White thing that's a little bit like The Princess Bride. The girl who plays Snow White, that's his daughter.
I know Lily Collins.
Yeah.
Lily Collins is Phil Collins' daughter.
That's right. Just pointing that out. Looks just like her dad. Just as bald. No, wait a minute. Maybe not.
Aw.
Maybe that was Phil in drag. Never mind.
We should tell Phil we mentioned him twice. should have been email. Anyway, there's two concerts on this
I was
thing.
talking
One
about
is
this Phil Collins.
Oh, sorry. Well, both are bald.
And the other Phil isn't even a Phil Collins.
No.
We're screwing the whole Phil thing. Phil, we apologize. We love you, Phil. We do.
I don't apologize. In fact, I'm quite proud of it. Anyway, there's two concerts on this Blu-ray. One is from 2004, and this was with the this was with his band. They did a lot of solo stuff. Obviously, Collins was also a member of Genesis back in the day. But the 2004 one includes Against All Odds, Don't Lose My Number, Groovy Kind of Love. You know what? His music doesn't really hold up. But there's also another concert here, which was done in 1996 with the Phil Collins Big Band. And that was also at Montreux, but again, it was from 1996. That includes some old Genesis stuff like Invisible Touch. There's also another rendition of Against All Odds. So you actually see that twice on this Blu-ray. And, of course, who doesn't love Sussudio? You know, the only CD trade I ever made was I gave, actually a friend of Phil and myself, I gave our friend Benji the CD for Phil Collins' No Jacket Required, and my friend Benji gave me the CD, The Best of the Monkees.
Ah, I don't know what that means.
It means that was the only CD trade I ever made.
Okay.
It involved Phil Collins and the late Davy Jones.
Oh, Davy.
Anyway, good stuff.
The best. All right. We only have a few minutes left. Let's make mention of, let's see, a couple of real quick things here. Just one regular TV release this week that we should probably point up if people are big fans of Eureka. This is Eureka Season 4.5. I don't know. This is a sci-fi series show. I don't know how many people actually watch this. Have you ever watched this?
No.
Yeah, I don't know how anybody even really watches this. But anyway, this apparently has some... I mean, I looked a little bit online, and it seems like there's 5 or 6 people who really rabidly love this show. But anyway, Universal releases all the sci-fi stuff, since that they are sister companies, or one owns the other, something like that. You're part of that whole thing, aren't you?
Oh, yeah.
The whole Comcast empire?
We own everything.
Yeah.
Sci-fi, Bravo.
Right. Well, anyway, this is a little bit like, I don't know, how would we put this? Space 1999 meets Star Trek meets Land of the Lost, except instead of going to prehistoric times, they go back to 1947. It's a very strange kind of mashup that isn't easy to explain, but, Joe Morton's fine. Joe Morton's good. And then lastly, before we get too far from the Super Bowl, we now have Super Bowl... what is that? XLVI. What is that? 40...
that would be 46.
46. Thank you. Hate my Roman numerals. New York Giants, Super Bowl 46 champions. This comes to us from Vivendi by way of the NFL. And, it's just, it's the friggin' New York Giants Super Bowl. Another one, what's the guy's name? The quarterback, the brother of the other guy who just changed teams.
Eli Manning.
That's it, that guy. Those Mannings. You like how I set that up for you? The brother of the other quarterback who just changed teams.
And yet I knew.
And yet you knew. See, we're like an old married couple. We understand each other implicitly. So that's out there as well for all you New York Giants fans, and not many other people will really care, because in 3 weeks everyone will have forgotten who won the Super Bowl anyway. Does anyone really care? Everyone watches that show, and then every year everyone just forgets about it instantly.
Everyone watches the commercials and considers it a good excuse to be social.
That's what it is. That's what it is.
Very few people, like a relatively small percentage of people who watch the Super Bowl really care who wins. I mean, maybe the fans of the teams playing. Otherwise, I just want to eat ribs.
Well, you can email us at gods@digigods.com. You can send us emails. You can send us your voice recordings for our VoxBox segment. You can ask us all kinds of crazy questions. We're known to answer.
Catch you on the flip side. Time for me to peace out. Later, Gator. See ya. Wouldn't want to be ya. I'll be back. Hold down the fort till we meet again. Bisexual.
Amazing Grace, which was written by a famous abolitionist, John Newton, back in 1779. And really an extraordinary story that was dramatized in the movie called Amazing Grace. But I think the story that Bill Moyers puts together here is much, much more engaging and fascinating and intriguing, and all the different performances and the different versions of it are just really deeply moving. Absolutely a wonderful slice of history that you just won't get anywhere else or any other way, because Bill Moyers is one of those rare, unique American talents. So, Mark, for people who are out there using Match.com, using JDate, who are...
I feel sad for you. I'm your competition.
Part of your community. What's going on out there this week? What should they look for?
Actually, you know what? Here's a piece of advice.
Yes.
When you're looking for women online.
Yes.
And women, they have all sorts of photographs.
Sure.
They have 2, 3, 4, 5 photographs. The worst photograph is what they really look like.